Now, how many randoms do we have? We have 17 randoms left. So let's pull out the random number generator and see what we get. It is 11. That is The Little Lies We All Tell. No clue whatsoever what this is. Let's go find out. Well, for some reason, I watched all of The Little Lies We All Tell. This, just a regular ass comedy series about, four girls doing comedy things, except they're all wacky, they have some wacky lives that they're living out. I don't know if it was mentioned in any synopses or not. It probably is. But basically, one's an alien, one's a ninja, one's a mind reader, and one is just a boy. Because he pulled a Bakken test and he's basically just a cute boy version of his twin sister. And his twin sister's making him go to school for her. I'm also recording this during a storm because, but so hopefully that doesn't come through too much on the recording. But I don't really know why I finished this show. It's like right on the edge of being not good. There is something. It had just enough laughs to get me through each episode. It's not like I would definitely say like the first 3 episodes are probably the best, and then it just keeps repeating jokes. This is why I don't finish a lot of just like episodic comedies like this, because they just kind of repeat the same jokes over and over again, and I eventually give up. I felt like I was going to give up a lot during this, but eventually I was just like, well, maybe one more, and then I realized it was only 11 episodes, so I'm like, well, I'm already close to the end. I might as well finish it. Even though the ending episodes were definitely the least funny and least interesting. Like, when this one tries to do like the token serious moments, it does not do them very well. They're not awful, but they could definitely be done a lot better. Yeah, I mean, the jokes kind of write themselves. Alien trying to figure out what a normal human Japanese high schooler is supposed to be like. Ninja constantly fending off attackers while trying to keep her facade up. A boy trying to act like a girl and then inadvertently being seen as a girl makes him very disappointed and self-conscious. And then honestly, like the thing that really tied it all together was the mind reader, Sekine, because she's the straight man of the group, just trying to like keep everything held together and guide all of these fucking weirdos to a proper solution instead of doing something totally outlandish that's gonna blow their cover. That's really all I have to say about it. There is some questionable gender politics in it. Like, there's this one scene where they're at the beach and this guy's like hitting on her and hitting on the ninja girl, and he like grabs her arm because she's like trying to get away, and then she just full force attacks him, beats the shit out of him. And then the whole rest of that gag plays out like she was the one who was in the wrong. And like, I don't know much about Japan, but I'm pretty sure that even in Japan, if a guy grabs a girl by the arm and won't let her get away, that's the police are going to be on the girl's side in that. So, but the episode just plays out like it's her fault. So that was kind of not great. But other than that, I really don't have a lot to say about this one. The animation's not particularly good. It's got some solid character designs, except, well, I would say the Mind Reader's character design is definitely the worst of the four. But otherwise, there's nothing particularly stand out about it. They also really overused the play the OP and ED during the episode thing. Like at one point in the last episode, they play the OP twice in episode. Like aside from actually they don't do I don't think they do the regular OP in that episode, but they do it like over plot stuff like twice in like 5 minutes, and I'm like, did you not have this planned out? Was this intentional? Like, yeah. I don't think I would recommend this to anyone unless you really, really, really liked the premise that I just described to you. Like, I know a few people who, just for one particular thing, they will watch the show. It's the boy who dresses as a girl. That I know people who will watch a show just for that. So if that's you, give this one a shot. But I really can't recommend it to anyone else. I feel like this is going to end up pretty low on the list, but let's go find out. Alright, Little Lies We All Tell is done. And we're going to put you right here, right above House of the Lost on the Cape. You get a strong 4. I was questioning whether I should give it a 5 or not, but I really did not feel like watching anymore by the end of it, so strong 4. In any case, how many do we have left now? 16, and then the end caps. So let's give it a go and see what we get next. 12. 12 is Housing Complex C. I think this one might be like a horror anime or something. I have no idea. Let's find out. Well, that was kind of weird. I got about 7 minutes into Housing Complex C, which apparently was an Adult Swim exclusive, and now it's on HBO Max. So this was, I guess, this is part of like a bigger effort by Toonami to just order like original shows for the West. Like, this hasn't even aired in Japan yet, I don't think. And with good reason, because it kind of sucks. Like, the opening... Now, the plus side to it airing in the US first is that the gore isn't censored. So the flash-forward opening had some... Well, it had gore in it. It's not particularly good gore, but it had it in it. And there wasn't anything particularly interesting about the opening scene, other than that it's a flash forward where a guy has a vision and then is trying to kill 2 little girls and then he dies. And then the proper start of the story is so slow, filled with so much uninteresting dialogue. Part of that might be due to the fact that it's all English language voice acting. Like, there is no Japanese dub of this yet. There probably will not be, because this sucked ass. And I assume it only gets worse from here, because this has a less than a 6 on Mal. So, not expecting greatness out of this one. The dialogue just feels so stilted and over-expository, and just it doesn't sound like humans talking, which I'm sure is what a lot of dubs sound like, and like a lot of anime dialogue doesn't sound right, like if you just read the subtitles, but like the voice acting usually makes it sound a little more natural. This doesn't. This is very awkward and weird to listen to. And also just the script itself is not good. It's just boring exposition with, it's like every third or fourth line is exposition about something. And it's just boring. Let's move on. Alright, housing complex C is gone. Now let's see what we roll next. 8. Do it yourself. Okay. Been looking forward to this one. Let's go ahead and do it. Alright, I just finished all of Do It Yourself. That was a fun old time. A little bit underwhelmed by it, just a little bit, but overall, really fun series about DIY craftsman hobby stuff. It gives a little bit of insight into like how to make certain crafts, certain objects and such. I was hoping for a little bit more in that regard. I was hoping it would be a little bit more Yuru campy in terms of like the detail that they go into on the stuff. But I was still happy with what we got. Like, I learned it does a really good job of portraying like DIY stuff as not impossible to do. Because like a lot of the stuff that they do in this show, like building a bench or a tree house or like arts and crafts stuff, it's like, as a normal person, or not a normal person, as a person who is like not into this kind of stuff, like you look at that and you go, well, wow, this is practically impossible for a regular person to make. But they really it really slides into this nice middle ground of still looking difficult to do, but it doesn't look impossible to do. Like, some of the parts of the treehouse assembly was like, oh, that you just have to do it like that? Oh, okay, that makes sense. That doesn't seem as hard as I thought it was. Now, obviously, there are some parts that are difficult, like making the blueprint for it, using AutoCAD and shit, but I like that it presents a nice middle ground between this is easy to do and this is impossible. Like, this stuff you can do if you like just try and have the resources for it. Like, you can't see them because the camera's not pointed at them, but like, I have so much manga now that I just keep buying shelves from like Walmart and shit, just cheap ass shelves. And after this, I'm like, what if I just try to make a shelf? What if I just try to make a bookcase? That'd be pretty cool. I doubt that I'm going to remember it the next time I need more space, but we'll see. We'll see. And visually, I think they do a pretty good job at like portraying how this stuff looks too. It looks very realistic while still being in a bit more of a cartoony kind of anime style. It is like the color design feels very cartoony, but like the actual details of the different objects feel very realistic and tactile, and you really get, it has a fine eye for detail on those things. And in general, it's just kind of interesting to learn about like DIY stuff. Like one of the big plot points in this is getting their hands on tree attachment bolts or tabs as they're called. And I'm like, okay, well, how much does a tab cost? Like they mentioned it in yen, and I forget what they said in yen, but I remember I'm like, that's the budget. how much could a tab actually cost? And then I looked them up online. It's like, and I saw 4 for $260. I'm like, what the fuck? But it turns out they're actually kind of big. The size on the shopping image deceived me because they're like big ass fucking chunks of metal. I assume they're very like well made and very sturdy too. So that was just fun learning about all these different craft stuff. Some stuff that I might, if I ever find myself completely bored and have absolutely nothing to do, I might try out one day. Who knows? It seems interesting. I am not opposed to DIY. I am slightly less opposed to DIY stuff now than I was before this series. Aside from that, like, got a pretty decent cast of characters. I'm not going to say strong, because I do have some issues with some of the cast. Mainly Jolbico, mostly in the voice acting department, to be honest, because this is supposed to be like an American character, I think. Definitely, like, yeah, I'm pretty sure she's American. And they have her speak English a lot in this series, but it's very clearly a Japanese actor who is not fluent at all in English. I forgot what her voice actress is, but she's not a new voice actress, if I recall. I don't see. Voice acting is very particular in anime, from what I've come to learn. Like you have to sound a very specific way when you're doing voice acting, and so that's why you very, very, very rarely see foreign voice actors and actresses in anime, or even just regular Japanese actors and actresses in anime. It's something you rarely see outside of like movies. But that creates a problem when you want to make a character that's foreign. Like, this character does not sound American at all, in any way whatsoever. And she's 12, presumably lived a decent chunk of her life in America. It seems like all of her flashback segments seems like they were in America, as far as I could tell. And it's extremely, not only is it immersion breaking, but it also just doesn't sound good. And also the grammar is just bad. Like, there's really bad grammar that she's from her. That just it doesn't sound good at all. Like, I was just watching it and it's like, imagine if like, instead of like someone like Ken Watanabe doing like being a realistic Japanese person in like American Hollywood productions, you just get some Asian guy from like the Midwest or something, and he's like just on camera going "Yoroshiku onegaishimasu." That's what it sounds like. That's how bad it sounds when Jobiko's voice actress does this, and it's both the fault of the voice actress for not being able to speak like an American person, and also the director for doing this in the first place. I think it's much more so the director's fault and the production committee's fault for not doing this. Also, like, I don't think they really care, but that's just speculation. Yeah, it was extremely distracting, especially because the grammar was so bad. Like, the many sukonbu, like, it's not how people speak. But who knows? For all I know, there could be a bunch of like American shows where people have really awful Japanese grammar in it. Who knows? If they are, I would criticize them for that too. Yeah, but like I shouldn't have to be looking at the subtitles to figure out what the hell she's saying in English. But aside from that, she's also not a particularly easy character to like either, especially in her opening episode where she's just being a massive brat. Like her and Pudding as well. She's like going full on tsundere in the first like half of the series, and it takes a lot of time for her to warm up as well. And it's like I get both of their motivations for why they are like that, but it still seems over exaggerated. Like especially like the first interaction between Pudding and Jobko. Jobko just like completely freaks out on her, and it's just extremely off-putting. But eventually I did come to like all these characters, those two. But the other characters I had no problem liking at all. Serufu is really cool as a protagonist. She's this absolute airhead, no thoughts, head empty kind of girl who is just, and there's a lot of cars roaming around today. Anyway, just the head empty kind of girl. Not a care in the world, just constantly drifting off to thoughts about different things. She's real fun to be around. Oh, that's another weird animation thing I noticed is like, so like normally when you color in like an anime character's mouth, like the inside of their mouth will be kind of pink, like tongue colored. With Serufu, they colored it in white. I don't know why. My favorite explanation for this on Twitter is she is no thoughts, head empty. And I was like, okay, that's acceptable. But it was kind of distracting once I noticed it. But aside from that, loved her as a character. Her journey from being really kind of terrible at DIY to being fairly decent at it. And the way she connects with other characters through this hobby was really fun. Yeah, the other characters are pretty fun. Takumin's fun. Yasaku is fun, senpai kind of character. And Shichan, that monkey ninja girl, who is apparently like Southeast Asian royalty. That was just a fun little thing to throw in there. That was fun. Oh, I also did kind of like this contrast between like the hyper-tech school and just the bog standard average school with the DIY program in it. Or DIY club in it. That was a fun little contrast to like draw people in who are like the tech head people, the people who are going to grow up to be Silicon Valley tech bros, draw them back over to the DIY side of stuff and just show that it is kind of gratifying to do stuff with your hands and all that. Yeah. Overall, fun show. It was definitely funny, too. Like most of the humor was pretty solid. Surprisingly, the joke about them eating pork around Serufu's pet pig never got old when the pig was just like cowering in the corner. That never got old somehow. But yeah, funny show with some decent characters who are all heartwarming by the end of it and endearing. And some really solid animation. I really like the cartoony designs of the characters, while still being like extremely cute anime girls. It does the thing that I really love in anime where like the hair is one color and then like the underside of the hair is like a complementary tone. Like Serufu's hair is like a grayish beige color and then it's got like a cyan as the back coloring. Yasaku's is like orange hair and she's got like green back coloring. Love that. They did it in Healer Girl and I love that there. And it's got some pretty interesting cuts sometimes too, whether it just goes like really just into the details of like the woodworking and like the DIY stuff. That was really fun. Yeah, fun show. Not my favorite cute girls do hobbies thing by any stretch, but still pretty fun. So let's go ahead and figure out where I rank it. Alright, Do It Yourself is complete. And we're gonna put it right here, right under Pokemon Journeys. On You Get a Light 7. Fun times. Alright, so what does that leave us in the random portion? That leaves 14. So let's see what we get next. 3. More Than a Married Couple. Okay, I remember this one getting a lot of buzz too when it was airing. Let's see how it do. Alright, I just finished all of More Than a Married Couple, but Not Lovers. And I have a lot of complicated feelings about this one. But overall, I would say I recommend it. It's a good show. With a lot of caveats. Because right off the bat, I can't stand the premise for this show. It makes no fucking sense whatsoever. So the premise, if you haven't looked the show up yet, is that they are taking practical marriage courses at this high school, and so they are making students cohabitate with each other and act like married couples. Why? I don't know. The show doesn't explain it. I assume it's to teach people how to be married, but that's not an issue as far as I know in Japanese culture. Like, it's kind of an issue in American culture, but mostly from like a hey, don't beat your wife standpoint. And also from the standpoint of, hey, don't cheat on your spouse, but also that doesn't make sense in this context because students are allowed to date outside of their assigned marriages, so that lesson will not be learned. In fact, that lesson might have the opposite effect and teach people that yes, it is okay to date outside of marriage, to date people outside of your own marriage. And also, you're going to have some really fucked up psychological circumstances based on this premise. I know they want to just like sweep that part under the rug, but you kind of can't. Like, what happens if you put two people together who really fucking hate each other and one of them is like a real bad dude? What if you put two people together and one of them is gay? Like, these are only male-female pairings because Japan still doesn't have same-sex marriage, I believe. Or they might have just gotten it. I don't remember. I don't think they have it yet. But what if that happens? In fact, the show kind of hints at that happening. Like, one of the characters, one of Shiori's friends, is a not-so-secret lesbian. They don't outright say it in the show, but it's pretty fucking obvious that she is in love with Shiori. What does she have to do? Does she have to act like she's straight? That's kind of fucked up. Thank God they don't show her practical husband, because that would be really terrible. So, right away, a lot of issues with the premise. That said, the chemistry between the characters in this show is really fucking strong. This is a really fun, well, the main two characters are really, Akari is a really fun character. I kept having to walk it back because a lot of my issues with the show are also on the character side, but Akari is far and away the best character in the show, the most fleshed out, the most interesting, the most multifaceted. And also it certainly helps that she has fallen into my basic bitch taste of anime waifus of cool beauties with long pink hair and big titties. Although she's a bit more of a gyaru than some of the other anime girls who have fallen into this archetype for me. I think the last time I talked about this in the seasonal wrap-up show was back when Shikimori was airing. She's definitely part of this archetype. Other notable inclusions would be Tsukasa from Fly Me to the Moon, which is a show that this show has a lot of... can very easily be contrasted against. We'll get to that later. And then another one being, obviously, Mori Calliope. Where's the thing? Oh. There. Back there. Got my little Mori pillow back there. But anyway, Akari is a really fucking strong character. Absolutely loved the arc that she went through in this series of starting off being obsessed with the super hot guy and then gradually like falling in love with Jiro, and eventually coming to the conclusion that yes, she does in fact love Jiro, and by the end of the series she is making a concerted effort towards being with him. Now Jiro is an incredibly fucking frustrating character. Because he falls into the clueless romance male lead archetype. They really fucking push it to the extreme in this series. Like, in this second to last episode, his childhood friend kisses him and says, "This is the only way that I can keep you by my side." And even afterwards he goes, what does that mean? "I'm going to fucking strangle you." Like, yes, they try to throw some nuance in there, but it's not good nuance. Bruh, she want your dick. Go for it. Ugh. So, he is incredibly frustrating in that regard, and also in that he's just not that detailed a character. Like, he's just another kind, virgin loner dude. He's got real nice guy energy to this almost, but I did like that there were moments where he does get a little bit more aggressive with Akari. That did make the chemistry a little bit nicer. Also, while I'm on the subject, this show is fucking hot. I don't remember the last show that I said this about, but this show, horny AF, and it's some good fucking horny. I was excited for quite a lot of this show. And also there are a lot of really, like, on-the-nose sex jokes in this. Like, fucking Jiro splattering frosting all over a girl's face. The word choices that go along with it. It's real on the nose. It's like, yeah, I see you're doing a sex thing. I am mildly amused by this. But yeah, horny fucking show. Loved it. So I guess that answers, well, doesn't answer the question that I posed in the Love Flops segment. But back when I talked about Love Flops, I was like, I think I'm over harems. And I think I am over harems, harems, but I'm not over horny. Or, I'm not over ecchi, I should say. Definitely not over ecchi. Because sex is fun. But yeah. Real horny show. But Jiro, the fact that he has good chemistry with Akari is probably the one saving grace for him as a character. Otherwise, I didn't particularly like him. But man, that chemistry is so fucking good. And like, it actually does show him like learning how to not be a fucking moron as the series goes on. He's not out of that funk by the end of this season. I don't know if this show's getting another season. We'll talk about whether I want another second season or not later. But he has made progress, which is a lot more than I can say about other rom-com MCs. But aside from them, I really did not care that much about any character in this show. Shiori is just so bland. Like if you took... It's like if you took Onodera from Nisekoi and cranked it down by like 80%. She's just such a bland interpretation of the childhood friend archetype. And then Minami, who's like the hot guy that Akari is going after, he is super not interesting at all until like the penultimate episode when it's revealed that he's like, oh, I'm not participating in this love triangle, quadrilateral, polygon, whatever at all. Y'all go do your own thing. That was fun. That made me appreciate him a lot more because he's in love with his brother's wife, it looks like. Which I feel like is a plot line from another anime that I've seen. And I can't remember. But anyway, aside from that, though, he's not an interesting character at all. Jiro's otaku friend is not interesting at all and kind of annoying. The only other character that is mildly interesting is the secret lesbian, whose name I can't even remember. I think it starts with an H, but I'm not sure. And I'm almost starting to think that, like, maybe that's the point. Like, I was formulating this very meta commentary, very meta-textual thing in my head, where it was like, okay, Jiro is in love with the basic template for the childhood friend archetype. Akari is in love with the basic template for the hot guy archetype. But then slowly but then maybe the show is slowly they realize that they don't want just the plain old archetype and they want someone who actually has depth to them. But I don't think the show was doing that on purpose. Maybe it was, but they don't really go all in on that idea, so I can't say for certain that that's what it is. I would love it if that is what it is, but I don't really have any other evidence about that. So I'll just leave that as headcanon for now, I guess. Because otherwise, like, if that isn't what this show is doing, then it's just got some really not great characters in it. Just really super mediocre characters. Like, listen, I'm all about the childhood friend archetype. That's like one of my like top 3 archetypes for anime. And this is probably one of the worst versions of it I've seen so far. She's not bad by any stretch, but Shiori is just so mediocre. Not interesting at all. Now, the one thing I did like about the premise, circling back to that, is that the idea of, like, getting to know different sides of people that you otherwise would never have interacted with at all. I do think that's an interesting concept. I wish that had been, like, well, no. I just think that's a nice little consequence of what they were trying to do. But yeah, aside from that, did not like the premise. And there's a lot of like misunderstanding stuff in this, be it for comedy's sake or for plot's sake. Now, to be fair, most of the time the misunderstandings are cleared up relatively quickly, but not all the time. And so those not all the times become very annoying. The summer festival where Akari sees Minami and Shiori walking back, apparently on a date, is what it looks like to her, even though it's not what it is. But yeah, it's a little give and take there. But yeah, I'm real all over the place with this show in terms of like what the scripting of it. Which is unfortunate because the animation is fucking incredible. This could easily be like a top 5 best looking show for this season. Like, I'm not exaggerating that at all. This is a really goddamn good looking show. Like, not only like I think I talked about it in the Love Flops episode. But More Than a Married Couple has this very almost candy color color palette to it. But this show does it right, and it looks so goddamn pretty. The colors and the lighting are so goddamn beautiful in this show. Like I think it's episode 3 when they're watching the horror movie that dim lighting, and also episode 7 after Akari comes home from the summer festival. Just incredible fucking shit. By the way, learned that the director for the show, not the chief director, but like the main director, what's his name? Junichi Sakamoto or something? Yeah, Junichi Yamamoto, I think. Also directed and storyboarded my favorite episode of Pokemon Evolutions, the Rayquaza episode. And he also storyboarded a lot of the episodes in this show too, I think. Like I know for sure he did episode 7. So that was cool to see him come back. I'm definitely going to look more into this guy in particular now that I know he is really fucking good at making shit look real fucking pretty. But yeah, the color design is so fucking good. The lighting is fucking gorgeous. I love the way that they play with blocking and shadow and the blocking of shadows in this, and just general like shot composition. There's not a lot of like super interesting camera work. Like occasionally though, I think it was like episode 10, I think 10 or 11, where it's just like this tracking shot of Jiro walking across a deck and then down some stairs, and I'm like, whoa, wait, where'd you pull this out of? Like, if you don't know a lot about anime, that's probably not an interesting shot to you, but having seen so many anime that can't pull off that shot, I'm like, okay, you got some talent there. Yeah, so this anime was done by Studio Mother, which I think is like a brand new studio that was formed by like ex-Zebek staff. If you're not familiar with Zebek, they're a much older anime studio. I don't know a lot of what they've done off the top of my head. I know they did To Love Ru, and I think they did Fafnir. I'm not sure about that one though, but they're like an older anime studio that kind of just fell apart as the years go on. But it looks like a lot of their stuff has come back to make Studio Mother, and I'm real looking forward to what else this show does. Because also Zebek was also known for being a very horny studio. Example, To Love Ru, and Studio Mother seems to be carrying on that trend. The show's very horny. Akari's character design is so goddamn hot. Like, I'm just gonna say, she might be one of the hottest anime characters I've ever seen. Now, occasionally it does go a little over the top with, like, boob physics, but other than that, real fucking good stuff. Yeah, it's just so goddamn pretty, and very pretty sounding too. Really solid soundtrack to this. I forgot the name of the composer for this, but I think she hasn't really done a whole lot of anime stuff. We'll have to keep an eye out for her name too. But But yeah, I think that's most of what I have to say about this. I've probably forgotten a ton of stuff. But I'm real conflicted about this show. Because, like, also, like, probably, like, episodes 8 to 10, 8, and, like, maybe half of, like, episode 11, I was really, like, falling off with this. I was like, this is starting to feel like a slog. But it definitely picked back up at the end. Really picked back up at the end. Fucking love. The final episode was really good. So, like, this leads off on a really big cliffhanger. That, honestly, I'm not sure whether I would like a second season of this, because if this is from an ongoing manga, and it's ongoing in the sense of they're still not together at this point, I don't think I would want another season of this, because it's very clear that Jiro and Akari are going to get together at some point, and they're really just dragging their feet at this point, because Jiro is so fucking... Listen, I was not socially intelligent in grade school and high school, but I could at least understand when someone liked me. Trust me, I was real looking out for that. So when I see these characters where I'm like, oh, I don't understand, is she into me? Yes. Assume yes, and go for it. And I understand that's hard for high schoolers to do, but I'm really tired of that at this point. I think Kaguya has kind of broken my brain in terms of rom-coms, which sounds odd, but roll with me on this. The premise of Kaguya-sama is that they are trying to force the other person to confess to them. Now, and the reason that they don't know that the other person is very obviously into them is because they are fucking psychopaths who do not understand anything about life outside of academics. And the show goes out of its way to show just how exaggerated that... Like, it is as Dickens would call it, it's a grotesque. It is the character that is just so hyper-exaggerated to convey a certain idea. And then, on top of that, they still eventually get together relatively quickly in terms of anime rom-coms. And aside from Kaguya, we're getting a lot more shows where they're just in relationships. Again, Fly Me to the Moon is like the most obvious parallel for this. Where, if you haven't seen Fly Me to the Moon, it's about a guy who real life marries a girl that he just met. And then after that, they start really falling in love with each other. Like, he is in, like, love at first sight mode. But the show is about them learning more about each other and learning how relationships could work. I think it could... Honestly, I think Fly Me to the Moon could do with a little more conflict, in my opinion. I'm, like, way deep into the manga at this point. I think I'm 17 volumes into the manga. And it just now finally got to, like, a pretty notable conflict between these two. But even still, that's a better premise than this show. And also, there's just other anime that have, like, anime rom-coms that are about relationships. You have stuff like Horimiya. You have stuff like Momokuri. You have these actual anime relationships in rom-coms. And I'm just so tired of the chase at this point. I'm tired of 12 episodes that ends on a maybe. I'm really tired of that. So, if there is no definitive, yes, they are going to get together in the next season, I don't know if I could stomach more of this. Even though I really, really love the character dynamics in this show, and I really love how this show looks. I don't know if I could stomach more of it. But I guess we'll find out if it gets a second season. But for now, let's go figure out where to put this on the list.
Alright, More Than a Married Couple, But Not Lovers is done. And where did I say I was going to put you? I'm going to put you right under Parallel World Pharmacy here. For all the shit that I talked about it, you're still getting a strong 7 because I really enjoyed the chemistry in the show, and goddamn, it was pretty. Now, I think we're going to do one more random before we jump down to the, what do you call it, the, losing my mind here after I talked for so long about that, the end caps, that's what I'm talking about. So, how many left? 13. So let's see what we get. 7 is Bibliophile Princess. I believe I recall hearing mixed things about this one, so let's give it a shot.
So this is going to sound like a weird description, but I feel like I just watched fan fiction. I actually managed to watch all of the Bibliophile Princess. This was an interesting one because that's really kind of what it felt like. It felt like fan fiction by way of a slightly classier pulp romance novel. This is it's a very demure princess who loves books, who gets to marry this really handsome prince, and literally everything in the show is solved by her reading a book and knowing stuff, just knowing things and suggesting them to everyone across the castle, around the castle, in almost like a Mary Sue kind of way. But you know what? This was a very pleasant show. For the most part. We'll get into some critiques I have in a bit. But this was from, what was his name? The director's Taro Iwasaki, I think. I'm not sure if that's who it is. But it's the same director as 1 Week Friends and Sweetness and Lightning. Both of which I think are stronger shows than this. But if you've seen those, you probably know the vibe of this one. This is going to be a very calm, very, almost just very ambient kind of series. And the first, 3 or 4 episodes were definitely that. I will say the production very much fell off as the show went on. Now, the production didn't fall off per se, although I did notice some melty faces here and then. But it felt like a less visually impressive production as it went along. Some of the lighting choices that made the first few episodes very warm and inviting were just kind of fell by the wayside as the series went on, and so it just started to look kind of mediocre. But it's got that very kind of calming, very relaxed vibe of something like 1 Week Friends. Except it's a fantasy royalty anime with a bunch of cute boys in it. The first episode 2 in particular was very Oran-ish. There's a point in episode 2 where they just rip episode 1 of Oran, almost beat for beat. And it has this, a lot of the show has this very, and then everyone clapped energy. But you know what? I was just vibing with it so hard that I didn't care, because it was for the most part, it's just these very fan fiction-y, pulpy romance character interactions. Nothing's like upsetting. Nothing's like a super downer, except for like later on in the series. But it's still just like barely enough excitement to keep you engaged. It's like at that perfect level of I can just kind of chill out and be mildly enjoyed by this. And for like the first like 7 to 8 episodes, I was really into that. I will say the last arc started to get on my nerves though, because what happens is in the 4 arcs of this. Well, did it happen in the second arc? Hold on, let's see. I will say in at least 3 of the 4 arcs of this series, possibly all 4, but I can't remember if it happened in the second arc or not. But what'll happen is the princess, Ileana, will go, oh, I'm not good enough for the prince. I am sad about this. And then the prince will be like, here are all of the ways that you helped our kingdom. Also, I love you a lot. And then she'll be like, oh, yeah, I love him. And then the next arc will start and she'll go, oh, I don't know if the prince loves me or not. And it became, the last arc of this series became very infuriating because of that. Because of how many times the prince has explicitly said, I love you, I don't need anyone else besides you. The last arc became very annoying because it hinged so much of its drama on that. And I liked that, like, in the beginning of the series, like, to set up this kind of dynamic that they have, but just repeating it over and over again got kind of old. So the last arc was a bit of a struggle, but again, the granular details of what this princess learns from all the books that she's reading is pretty interesting. It also helps that the villains are like snidely whiplash, mustache twirling villains. Like they're just so like very overtly evil. And then they get punished like good, naughty little boys and girls at the end of each arc. That's what I mean when I say it. It feels like middle school fan fiction, where it's like these are the bad guys and they are bad and now they are being punished. It has that energy to it, but it's just pleasant enough. And the details are just interesting enough for it to work. Even when they are just being like cartoonishly evil. Like there's this 10-year-old girl in the last arc where at one point I was just like, oh, you are just a nasty little cunt, aren't you? Jesus. Pardon my language, but she, like, goddamn. And like all the women scheming to take Ileana's place are just these super petty bitches. Where it's like, it felt like I was watching like a reality show or something. Like they would do something, and then like there would be a retort that puts them in their place, and I'd be like, "Ooh, get her, bitch! Ooh!" It was a wild time. This was just the right amount of trash for me. I don't know if I would watch a second season of it. Presumably they're going to get married in the second season, if there is a second season. But I assume that hopefully if Eliana stops repeating the same character arc over and over again, I would consider a second season of this. Although, it's probably not going to look any better than it is. Again, it's not bad looking, but it really falls off visually after the first, like, 3 to 4 episodes. Just becomes kind of mediocre looking instead of having, like, this really tight aesthetic to it. Yeah, I enjoyed that in a way that I did not expect. I'm probably going to forget about most of the characters afterwards because most of them are entirely one-dimensional. But it was a fun little pulpy romance. So let's go figure out where to put it on the list.
Alright, Bibliophile Princess is done. And we're going to put you just under Ayumu here. And you are getting a light 6. Had a lot of issues with it, but overall just a pretty pleasant time. Except for like some parts in the last arc. Yeah. Now, I believe that's the last random for this video, so we're going to jump down to our end caps here. We're going to watch Pop Team Epic Season 2. Let's see if we can go 3 in a row on finished shows.
You know, I gotta be honest, after so many like successes in a row for this particular episode of the seasonal wrap-up show, I was kind of concerned that maybe I overestimated Pop Team Epic by using it as an end cap. I was like, is this really going to be a good one to end on after all this discussion beforehand? And then I watched Season 2 and I remembered, oh right, this is Pop Team Epic. So, yes, I finished all of Pop Team Epic Season 2. I think I liked this one more than the first season, actually. Just a little bit more. They're still going fucking insane with the insane levels of creativity in the visual presentation of the show. They're just busting out like every medium possible, just making this shit as funny as possible. And you know, honestly, I'm not even sure if I have a lot to say because it's just more of Pop Team Season 1. And I think I did a video on the first season. Well, half of the video was about Pop Team Epic, so if you want to go look that up, you can. I'm sure my thoughts still hold up on that. But, yeah, this is just an incredibly expressive show with tons of really, what's the word I'm looking? It's just so quick-witted, and the pacing of the jokes is just so solid. Just keeps going and going and going. Not all of them are like bangers. Some of them are duds a little bit, but overall I was just fucking losing it through this show. And I think the reason I like this season more than season 1 is I have 2 theories on it. Either A, it's going for more relevant like memes and ideas that are like more like common, I guess you could say, so I understand the humor a little more, or I just know more about internet culture than I did back when season 1 aired, because that was like what, 2018, I think. I'm pretty sure Pop Team season 1 was 2018, so it's been, goddamn, it's been over 5 years since I've seen that. But yeah, like there's so many like jokes that are just like on top of like the relevancy right now. Like there's a bunch of Apex Legends jokes in it. There was like a T-posing joke in it. I'm struggling. I've watched this over like a span of a couple of days, so some of the early episodes are already leaving my brain, but and then there's just like really weird like random like one of the longer skits is just like a Dora the Explorer parody. And that was fucking hilarious. The comedic timing in that was fucking brilliant. Yeah, fucking great show. That I do like. I don't know. I don't remember if they did this in season 1 or not, but I know for sure in season 2 they did it. I like that each sketch starts with which studio did each sketch. Like most of them were done by either Kamikaze Doga, who I believe did like all of season 1 or most of season 1, and then a lot of the other skits in season 2 were done by, I think it's Space Neko Company or something. And you can start to see like, oh, here's the difference in these styles. Like Space Neko Company is a lot more just traditional, straightforward animation, whereas Kamikaze Doga has more like rigging involved in their animation and stuff like that. And then there's just like the totally out there ones. Like they brought in fucking Masami Obari to direct like a mecha sketch in episode 2, which fucking ruled. Junichi Yamamoto is apparently like a big player in this series. He does like these weird commercially kind of sketches in this. If you remember from previous from the More Than a Married Couple segment in this video, he was the director of that show. And so I feel like I'm starting to really understand this director's style, weirdly enough. And I like it. I like what I'm seeing. The guy knows what he's doing. His like commercial episodes were commercial sketches were just super like bombastic and explosive. Lots of really cool color work. I loved it. I guess the one thing where I was a little disappointed by, was like the final episode, because I was a little confused at first, because it was like Mal has this listed for 11 episodes, but there was very clearly 12 episodes on Crunchyroll. And then I booted up episode 12 and I'm like, right. The final episode is actually mostly tokusatsu. It's mostly a live action tokusatsu series with little bits of animation here and there. With the stop motion felt puppet music video, pull out your spinal cord. Or pop out your spinal cord, I think it was. Which was fucking hilarious. But yeah, I was slightly disappointed in the final episode of this, just because it didn't have quite the same impact as the final episode of the first season, where the live action stuff just kind of came out of nowhere, with Shota Aoi just kind of showing up and being Shota Aoi. I don't remember all the details of it, but like, because it was like 5 years ago. But I remember just my jaw just hitting the fucking floor when that happened. And the first episode of season 2 like opens on that as just like a bit, I guess. And then it just gets dropped for the rest of the series until this final episode. Mostly, and the reason I'm kind of disappointed in it is because I don't think it needed to be the majority of the episode, because it's mostly just a tongue-in-cheek it's like the final episode of a very tongue-in-cheek tokusatsu franchise, and it looks great. Like, in terms of like tokusatsu, it looks good, surprisingly good, but it was just a little too much until all of the multiverse Popuko and Pipimis showed up and just started beating the shit out of everybody. That was pretty funny. But yeah, Pop Team Epic's still really good. Let's go figure out where to put it on the list. Alright, Pop Team Epic Season 2 is done. We're going to go all the way up here, put it right... yeah, we're going to put it right in here. And you get a light 8. Fun times with Pop Team Epic.